Hi everyone, Dr. M here with a new design for you guys to create. Today we're going to make a pair of dice, and you should be in Tinkercad by now. So go ahead and log into Tinkercad. And once you get into Tinkercad, you want to make sure you've clicked on Designs, and then click on Create and a 3D design. And that's going to open up our palette, and we're going to have a nice work plane to work on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a basic shape, which is this item down here. So you're going to scroll down in the basic shapes to this bottom one where it says dice. We're just going to drag that out and drop it on the work plane. Did I grab the right one? Yes, I did. Okay. So we can get closer to this a couple of different ways. We can use our scroll button, which is on our mouse, to scroll in. Or we could use our buttons over here. So this is our home button. It gives us this long view. If we click on the item, we can use this button here, which is fitting our view to a selected shape. For me, that's just a little bit too big, so I like to scroll it out a little bit to right here. Now, we can make a die a couple of different ways. We can use what are called pips, which are circles. Little tiny circles, little indents into it. Or we could do numbers. Well, I like to make numbers. I like to make them where there's something like this. So we have a pair of dice that looks like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to take and one face on our number one, we're going to put our initials on there. So you can see how that looks. Now we're also going to put a void inside because we want to try and make these what are called loaded dice. So every once in a while, not all the time, but more often than not, that number will come up, the number opposite where we put it. So that number opposite of where the void is will tend to go down, and the number right behind the void will tend to come up. So this is what that void looks like inside. Now, here's one where the void wasn't placed in the right spot. So I printed this out on purpose so you could see how that void is kind of stuck inside there. Now what we're going to do with this is we're going to put a number 1 here, a number 3 here, a number 6 on the bottom. On the opposite side over here, we're going to put a number 4. And then over here on the left side, we're going to put a number 2 and then put a number 5 here. So let's get started. The easiest way to do this, I'm going to show you a couple of different things. So basic shapes, we want to go to design starters to be able to get our numbers. So here's the number 1. If we just drag the number 1 out and we drop it here, it's great, but we want it up here. So to get it there, we'd have to like lift it up in the air. We'd have to know how big this is, where we want this. There's an easier way of doing that. So let's undo this. We're going to put a work plane. So we're going to left click on our work plane. We're going to drag out a work plane, and we're just going to drop it right there. So now you can see that that work plane is right on the surface, and what that'll do is it'll let us put our number right on top of it. So we're going to take this number 1, left click, drag it out, and we're just going to drop it someplace on there. Wow, that's pretty good. It looks like it's almost perfect. Dr. M's really good at this. Been doing it a long time. So we want to know how tall this is. And if you look at each one of these little buttons, if we put our mouse over the button, it will tell us like the width, and it will tell us the length, the height of it. Now we need to know how thick it is because we're going to end up pushing this down in here. And this is 4 millimeters high, and we want it to go in 2 millimeters. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to set my snap grid, which is right down here in this bottom right corner. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to change it to 0.5 millimeters. And that's going to let me move things a little bit smaller. If I move 0.1 millimeters, it's going to move it a lot. So I kind of like where that is in its placement, but I'm going to show you how we can use the align tool. So what I just did was lasso, and I did that with my left mouse button. So I've lassoed that. And then this is the align tool. So we're going to align, and I want to make sure that I'm at least aligned in that direction. I don't care too much about this direction because it's going to say the center is over here somewhere, and it'll push it way too far in this direction. So I'm just going to up and down align it. Okay, now I have it where I want it, and I know the size is good. So I want to click on this, and then we have this little black cone at the top. I'm going to left click on that and just bring that down until those numbers say -2. So that's good. Now I've got my number pushed into the top of the die. And I'm going to come over here to where the hole button is. I'm going to change that from a solid to a void, because if you look at our numbers here, you can see our numbers are stuck into the die. So we're going to come over here and turn that into a hole. And then we're going to go ahead and lasso. Remember, left click, drag the mouse button, and then we're going to click up here where it says group. We can also do Control G to get that. So now I have, you can see that 1 is dropped into the die. So the next number I want to put is I want to put a number 3 right here. So I need to get rid of this work plane. Otherwise, if I drag the 3 out, it's going to sit on this work plane. So to do that, I just get a work plane and I drop it. Then I get a new one and I put it right there. I'm going to roll this up a little bit and I'm going to look for a number 3. And you probably have to click on more shapes. And there's our number 3. So I'm going to drag that number 3 out. And that number 3's center looks like it's right in the center of the 3, so I'm going to lasso this. And I'm going to use my align tool. And I'm going to get my vertical alignment and my horizontal alignment. And I'm going to look straight on, and that looks really good. Now, remember, if I want to spin this around, I can use this box over here as well to spin it around, and that'll let me spin it around and see it from all sorts of different sizes. I can do it that way, or I can do it with the right mouse button by holding the right mouse button down. Now, I want to kind of see this from the side because I want to move this in. We're going to double check. Yep, we're 4 millimeters thick, so we're going to take this, our little cone right here, and push it to the right until it says -2. And I'm going to turn it into a hole. Lasso the whole thing and group it. Remember, we can do Control G for that. So now I want to go to the opposite side over here, and I'm going to put the number 4. So I want to get a work plane, and I'm going to bring it out. Where's my work plane? There it is. And I'm just going to put it over here. So now I've got the work plane on that side of the die. Here's my 3 and my 1, so we're going to put a 4 over here. There's my number 4. Drag my number 4 out. We're going to lasso it. Use our alignment. Up and down, side to side. Oh no, that's really crowding that one side, isn't it? So we're going to click on the number, and we're just going to use our mouse buttons, or I'm sorry, our arrow buttons. So we're going to go left and up. Let's see what that did. I think I just come back down again. I think that looks the best right there. That looks pretty good. So I like that. I want to get this cone. Now sometimes the cones will appear in odd places. Sometimes you'll see them over here. Sometimes it looks like it's inside the die. So ours turned out inside the die this time. So we're going to move that in so it says -2. We're going to turn it into a hole, spin around, lasso it all, and group it. So now we have a 1. Where are we going? Are we done? There we go. We have a 1, we have a 3, we have a 4. We want to put a 6 underneath here on the bottom. So we're going to come up right like this, make sure this says bottom, come over here and grab our work plane and put a work plane there. We're going to grab this over here, the 6. It's going to come out as a 6 or a 9. We can use it in either direction. We're going to lasso all of it, align it because that looks pretty close to the center. Turn it a little bit so we can find that arrow. There it is. Move it up where it's 2 millimeters in. Turn it into a hole. Lasso the whole thing. Turn it into a group. So now we've got a 1, we got a 3, we've got a 4 and a 6. We're going to put a 2 on this side. So let's take our new work plane, drag it out and drop it there. We want to put the number 2 over here. Look at that. We got a number 2 sitting there waiting for us. Take it out there, lasso it, align, vertical and horizontal. Let's take a look. We're really crowding that bottom there, huh? So let's click on it and bring it up just a little bit. And I think that should be enough where it works out. Let's try one more and see what happens. Is that better? It still looks pretty good. I think, yep, I think moving it up that much is good. So we moved it up 1 millimeter. So now there's my arrow, my cone. I want to move it in, so we have -2. I'm going to turn it into a hole. I'm going to lasso it all, and I'm going to group it. So I have one number left to do, and that is the number 5 on this face over here. So I'm going to bring out a new work plane, drop it there. I'm going to look for a number 5. Do I have a number 5? Did I miss it? There's the number 5, and drag a number 5 out and drop it. Let's lasso it, align it, and click those 2, and let's see what that gives us. I think we can come down just a little bit. I think 1, bringing it down a 0.5 millimeter really works good. So let's spin this around, move it into the die 2 millimeters, so we should say -2 here. Turn it into a hole, lasso it, and group it. So let's get this back out to our standard. So we drag out a work plane and just drop it. Now we have all of our numbers on here, but I want to add our initials. I want to put our initials right here. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to go back from design starters to basic shapes. And we have some text here. Now, I want to put the text right up on top here, so I'm just going to put my work plane right there. Now, it's important that you put the work plane here, because if I put the work plane over here, there's my work plane. You can see that it's down in the hole. So I don't want that. I want the work plane sitting right on top of this. So remember, you make a mistake on something. Let's say I put the work plane in here and I go, oh no, the work plane's in there. What do? I just go undo. So I'm going to take my work plane. I'm going to make sure it's right over top of this big flat area here. I'm just going to drop it. And I want this text right here. And this is really powerful stuff. It is really huge. So we're just going to drop it. And right now it's pointing in the wrong direction. We want it going this way. So we're going to use this little double arrow button right here. Left click on it and just spin around towards the inside until we have 90 degrees there. And then we're done with it in that direction. But it's like way huge. So we need to make it smaller. Before we do that, we're going to change it to the right text. So you want to put your initials there. I'm going to put mine. So there are my initials. And now I want to make this smaller. So I'm going to do this in 2 steps. And the first step is to kind of make it small enough where we can work with it a little bit closer to the die. So first thing, I want to hold down the Shift key with my left hand, take the mouse, put it over top of this little button here on the bottom, and I'm going to left click on it and just drag that over until it gets smaller. Now, I'm not sure exactly where this is. I know it's at the right level, but I want to move it over. So rather than just try and grab it and move it, I found that it's much easier just to use the arrow buttons to try and put things where we want them. So that's close. It's still too big. So now we can zoom in a little bit. That's holding down my scroll button to move over. It's called a pan. So now we're going to use the Shift key again. Hold down the Shift key, left mouse button, make this a little bit smaller again. That looks about right for me. I'm going to move it over with my mouse buttons. Move it down. And we'll look at it from the top and see how it looks. It looks like it's a little bit too close to this edge here, so I'm just going to move it up a 0.5 millimeter. What happens there? Well, it's too close to that edge now. Well, I can take my snap grid and take it down to 0.25 millimeters and then bring it down just halfway in between. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to lasso it just because I want to check the alignment in this direction. And good. So that's what I want. Now I want to click on this and find out how tall it is, and it's 1.39 millimeters, which is good. I want at least 1 millimeter down into the die. So right now I have it in 1 millimeter. I'm going to turn it into a hole. I'm going to lasso the whole thing. I'm going to group it. And now I have a die with 6 numbers and my initials. And you think, we're done. Wait a minute, we're almost done. We're going to do a couple more things. So let's zoom out a little bit. Now, what I want to do is I want to put a void. I want to put a hole inside the die. But I need to know a few things first. I need to know how big the die is. And the die is 16 millimeters by 16 millimeters. I know that I pushed these numbers in 2 millimeters on either side, right? So that's pushed in 2 millimeters, that's pushed in 2 millimeters. So if I want to put a void in here, I've got to make the void small enough where it's not going to push through the holes like it did here. See, this person made the die, the void too big, and it pushed through the holes. So what we're going to do is put this like this. So the 3 is facing us, the 1 is up, and we're going to grab this thing right here called a hole block, and we're just going to bring it over. Now, I want to come around to this side of the hole block where I'm looking at the 5 through it, and I want to make this smaller. So this is 16, and I'm into, and I'm into, so that's 16 minus 2 minus 4, so that's 12. And then we want at least a millimeter on either side, so we can take another 2 off, so that means 10. So we want this to be 10 this way by 10 this way, and then in this direction, front to back, we're going to go 4. And we're only going to do that because it'll put the die to one side. So here's our first step. We come over here, we hold down the Shift key, we grab this left button, and we just bring this over until this says 10 by 10. Where's my 10? 10, 10. There we are. Good, 10 by 10. Let's change our snap grid back to 1 millimeter at this point. So now, scroll out a little bit. Remember, I can pan by holding down my scroll key. zoom in a little, and I want to grab this. Now you can see that if I grab that, it says it's 10 wide. I only want it 4 wide. I'm going to hold down my shift, or no, I don't need to hold my shift key, sorry. I'm just going to grab this, and I'm going to move this way. Oh, I know why it's doing that. So we're just going to come over here and click on this number and do 4.00. Okay. Now, right now, if you look, that is off of that grid line. So that tells me that I got to fix that real quick by just moving it back so it's on a grid line. Now I can go back to the 1 millimeter. You may not have to do that, but if you do, that's how you fix it. Look at these grid lines. These grid lines are spaced 1 millimeter apart. So if you see it slightly off of the grid line, it's because our snap grid was off. We went down to a small snap grid. So now I have the void at the right size, but it's not at the right level. So what I want to do is look at it from the side with the 5. I'm going to lasso it. I am going to click my align button, and I want to do my vertical alignment, and I want to do my horizontal alignment. Now, my front to back, this is going to be really easy to do. So I'm just going to click on this now and use my mouse buttons. And I want to move this mouse, or move this void over until it touches the face. And you can see it touch the face because the face will kind of flash. It'll kind of change color like that. Now remember, this is 4 millimeters wide. We know that this is 2 millimeters in, so that would be 4 plus 2, so we have to move this 6 millimeters. And then we need a millimeter in between the edge of the void and the back of that number that's over there. So we're going to use our mouse. So that's 4 plus 2 plus 1 is 7. So we're going to use our left mouse button and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, if we look, we don't see the void anymore. It's hidden inside. If we look, we can see where the void shows. It's not going to show on the bottom. It's not going to show on the top. And it's not going to show there. So we're in really good shape. But we have to do one more thing. We need to group this. So we're going to lasso it. Do a Control-G to group. And we have a completed die. But wait, there's more. We need to make a pair of dice. So we're going to left click on this, do Control-C, Control-V, use our right mouse button to push that aside so you can see a little gap in between. I like to leave about 2 millimeters in between. So now we have a pair of dice, and make sure you click off, because if you click on this and do what I'm going to show you next, you'll only get one dice come out. So you want to click off so neither of them are clicked on. We're going to come up here to, oh, you know what we forgot? Oh, I can't believe Dr. M forgot this. I preach this and preach this and preach this, and I forgot. My bad. We need to rename this. Challenge number 2. And this one is, let's make a pair of dice. So that's our challenge number 2. Make sure it says that up there. Don't just send me something that says, you know, something really dumb. All right, make sure it says challenge number 2. Let's make a pair of dice. Now we can go to export. .stl. It prepared the model for export. It's exported it. And I'll show you in another video how you can send that to me. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed making the dice. I always do. It's a fun little exercise. I'll print those out over the next couple of days, and you'll get them back, and they'll be yours. So have fun, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.